Thank you. Okay, first of all, thank you, the organization, Chris, Capucini, fantastic. Thank all of you to receive me here, and thank you, Bucharest. I'm completely enchanted. Hope to see more. So let's go to the point. That was actually a sentence from Bernardo Diaz de Castillo when in the 16th century the Spanish invasion of the New World, of the Americas. So that was these great cities, shrines and buildings rising from the water, all made of stone, seemed like an enchanted vision from the tales of Amadis. In fact, some of our soldiers asked if it was a dream. So what they saw actually, they saw this city. That's Tenochtitlan, today known as Mexico City, Mexico DF. So that was it looked like in the 16th century, eventually. That's a reproduction, it's a drawing, but was absolutely futuristic city. It was particularly more advanced than Venice at the time, with large roads, huge market for 30,000 people, agroflorestal systems of cultivation using hydroponic technologies, highly advanced city, completely integrated in a natural environment, completely embedded in the natural dynamics of the ecosystem. So that's a reproduction how it was eventually, Tenochtitlan in Texcoco Lake, with all the connection with other smaller city, and that is how it looks today. I mean, you can barely see that plan. Could be Sao Paulo, could be actually any major city in the world. So what's happening? Why we are what's about our civilization? So our civilization, if you like, on the highest point of our civilization, how we managed to move from such an ecological city to such a pattern. Such a pattern that's actually it's happening in mainly all major megalopolis, particularly in South America, car-driven cities. So this is an exercise from Fray Otto with a professor from Stuttgart University. So they should manage to make a differentiation what is a handmade drawing from a city plan and what is actually a natural pattern. And there's 50-50 chance. I mean, you can barely see the difference in so many moments. So we do reproduce, we do redesign everything inspired by nature. Our brain is driven by inspiration by nature. So why we are not designing everything by nature like we did eventually in some moment, and how we can move forward. So we go fastly with free of so many images. Eventually you know about natural patterns, how natural patterns organize systems, organize relations, organize proportions, scales, and structure on different dimensions, different scales. And you can find patterns that you can see in everyday life. You can find actually mathematical patterns in so many geometries. You have some great blockbusters here, even on different scales, distribution, water distribution, or the same system appeared in organic and inorganic species. But actually that's pretty easy to calculate, it's pretty easy to reproduce. So biomimetic is a discipline that mimic natural processes and apply them in different areas. Give me from design to social organizations, to how improve your company, how you can better produce optimize some processes, some organization distribution processes, logistics. So whatever, biomimetics, it's actually ancient practice, exists as long as Homo sapiens exists. It's like watching nature, observing nature, being absorbed, seduced, enchanted by nature, and by so starting to understand nature, loving and understanding nature. So when they ask me, who is your preferred designer, so who's the architect or designer you like most, I said nature. It's 3.8 billion years old designer. It's like designing, making mistakes, redesigning, making it better, evolving. So there is not a final product. There is always a constant evolution, change. Life is change. Everything change. So about biomimetics, just a little, I think it's always useful to give light to that discipline that's 20, 30 years already trying to sell something, and it's so little listened. We make an exhibition in the Amazon about some cases like wind turbines optimized by by fish schools, like a fungi system applied to optimize metro distribution. This is actually a Brazilian designer. She's really young, talented designer, like ant jewels for fixing scars and injuries. Ornilux is like a glass that mimic actually the situation when the birds do not pass through. So, 50,000 birds die in New York every year, just smashed on the windows, on the glasses, in the smart buildings, right? Smart buildings. So Ornilux is designing a glass that actually birds can see. They can see different frequency that we can see. So it's like transparent, but for birds it's not transparent. And so many other products are designed nowadays, like producing energy with algae, bioluminescent systems, thermodynamics applied to buildings, cleaning products. It's actually a cleaning painting patented by a German company. That's like cleaning from lotus leaves. They never get dirty, never get wet. The water just go through, take the dirt away, and so on and so on. So all this project, we're going to exhibit them in a museum of science in the Amazon, a small museum, pretty like a rustic, local place, but we want to talk about that. Talk about technology, nature as a higher technology, how we can learn from nature and apply that in different fields. So how we operate in my atelier, in my office. First is observation, yes, like how we can observe. I have a great collection of nests, of birds' nests. I love birds' nests. Actually, the birds are great architects. They make tensile structure, complex shapes, ultralight systems. They can adapt to changing conditions. And we observe those. Systems, those strategies, and those intelligence, then emulate, how we can emulate. The different softwares, different systems, how you can emulate a process. So design is not like about the gesture, it's about the process of developing a shape that actually comes out from some natural parameter, rather structural, rather functional, rather as well pure inspirational. It all works, It all works because we need to bring biophilia in our everyday life. And it's about constructing the imagination, the language, the narrative, and finally development, prototyping in our office, creating different kind of system that can collaborate between each other. So I passed through several projects really fastly. They were inspired in different levels, in different measures, some of them purely on let's say, inspirational level by natural geometry. That's a natural geometry, you can see it all around. It's called Voronoi in coding, in programming, and it creates minimal surface shapes, pentagon, hexagon, you can see all them around. What we use that for designing this kind of surface. You have only 6 components, but by variation of those, you can get like a really complex expression of complexity, but they're just 6 tiles combined together. This geometry you know well, it's a Fibonacci code, like a spiral. We use it for this project. It's used for several projects in bamboo structures from Heineken, from some activations. This is in Inochim Museum. And actually, really simple star evolution in space that generate this kind of shape. I will go fastly through that. Other natural models. Natural models of leaves. Leaves are amazing structures. For example, like a leaf, like this paper like this fold, right? But this paper like this do not fold. So it's about shape. Structures work with shapes as well. So in this case, we used this kind of strategy for the TED Talks in the Amazon. So this is like a 7 meters tall, like recycled craft paper, stage design, and all the elements were used just with 2 simple elements, completely recycled and recycled again. Stars, they bear really strong pressures underwater as well. They need to bear some kind of pressure from sides when the tides come in, tides pressure. So we use this kind of strategy to create this architecture. It's completely inflatable, event area for 400 people. It was brought up in 4 hours, and then it got just easily dismantled and take away. And what I really like to explore is considering that these are not walls. In nature, you don't have wall, floor, roof. I mean, this is all about this kind of tectonic weight, patriarchal structures that we are used to live, that everything needs to be heavy, to weight. In nature, actually, everything works with tensions. It's not about weightness. It's not about being weight, heaviness. Our architecture always stay because they're heavy. If you take out the gravity, mainly of buildings will flow like that, you know. Little things that will not flow away by each other, baskets, balls, everything works with tension. So our bodies in nature, all living from the cell, they work with tension. So these are skins, how we start to build architecture, considering that they are skins. Skin, what the skin do? Protect, communicate, have different functions. They change their behavior through space. So this kind of space, actually, the box truss is just carrying the lightning. It's completely auto-supported with different skins, transparency, so you can have different natural lighting effects. Radiolaria, a really beautiful jewelry organism. Actually, in the 19th century, have beautiful books. We eventually saw them, but you can be inspired with so many shapes. So we use those kind of geometry to solution geodesics without creating a traditional geodesic, different material, different skin. Or as well, we can make a tessellation more organic, like bubbles. Again, going back to Voronoi, how to create structure that are not symmetrical, but they are structural integrity is based by the flow of energy through it. So in this case, this pavilion, they are made completely just with steel and transparent panels. There is an ecosystem running in one of those. Nests, again, for another space, for another company, on a showroom, for kitchen stuffs. This is a lamp we designed for Bertolucci, and what was funny that actually the company from the 60s, Italian company from the 60s, with this like huge, you know, machine that just can bend in different direction. But how you transfer a parametric design to traditional construction? I think that's really interesting. This kind of digital craftsmanship, how you connect a handwork with digital production. This lamp, it was digitally grown. That means we produced 3,000 lamps. Only one stood. That one was built. It's a process of growing shapes, and the scripting here was like from the gramínea, from grasses, from herbs, and that's how the shape comes out. So it's not about the hand drawing, it's not about the shape coming out from top down, but it's from bottom up. You program the shape. Another product from the same logic. And finally, sometimes inspiration in nature comes to create spaces, to create feelings, and that's the idea for the Biennale in Sao Paulo space. We did for Brajovic this project that is actually forest, and forest is something when you can lose yourself, forest is something when you find yourself, forest is something when you get curious, and the installation is really simple, just like a tree that multiply infinitely through mirrors and create a sensation of being in a light forest. Roots. I love roots. And they're so complex. They're so mysterious. They're actually telling us there is something bigger underground, that on top of the ground. And the trees, as you know, they are way more articulated under the ground between each other than over the ground. So there is this kind of interconnection, and the roots can teach us so much, physically, politically, economically, spiritually. So in this project was a future assembly, it was an exhibition at the Biennale of Venice for the pavilion. I designed this roots pavilion. This is a script in the code inspired by roots grow on the mangroves. And as we were showing it at the Biennale in Design Miami, I was really interesting to talk about urban planning and the mangroves, particularly in the tropics, because they're really important. They're really fixing the soils, and they're really important on our shores. And how we study them. We study how actually the root system work and the hierarchical structures of different weight and different organization of shape towards the structure. And by so, we could create this kind of project. It was exhibited with a video, with a model, and with my hand drawings about different root growings. And when you see how it was printed, actually it follows the branching principles, and it's kind of growing more than being built. So imagine like how we can grow buildings instead of building. So how we can change these kind of words we are using that come from mechanical word, building, the pillars of my company, the solidity. We always like behind that kind of attitude, once everything is changing, everything is fluid, and even more now, we can see finally that everything is under change. And that we build it. This is aluminum and rope structures, and we set it up in Miami. It was kind of pavilion with nets. There were other artists bringing VR installations on those hammocks with Amazonian rituals that you can perceive. Natural model, again, project. That's like a dandelion, a pretty big dandelion on the international airport, installed, celebrating a 50 years old Banderante, a really nice plane from the 50s. And it's an augmented reality installation, so kids can go and can blow on the sculpture, and they get a video of this kind of dandelion flying. So it's a sensation, whoever blow on the dandelion and don't remember that. It's like this kind of little connection sometimes we have in our memory with nature, and how we can bring them up again and again and again and keep them alive. Again, natural model. Now natural models as well, like biotic, abiotic, what is alive, what is not alive, water is alive, so we keep it as inspiration for the camper store. We did few camper stores. This is in Milano and Munich and San Sebastian. They follow the same concept. Actually, they're inspired by the wind movement, and there's 1,000 and 1,000 of shoelaces wrapped up on different heights to create this kind of ondulation and this kind of immersive environment. Pretty simple, but it really like works well. It moves a little bit with the wind, with the air condition, and the lights are hidden behind them. Another like a cyclonic and a typhoon as an inspiration for the Hong Kong and Melbourne one camper store as well. Here we use different code, but always the same concept. So how you create one concept that would fit all the spaces, because it adapts on different ways. It's inspired by natural phenomena from the region, use the same technique, same technology, but the model adapt differently in the architecture space. Water, a liquid movement. That was the inspiration for the Coca-Cola space on the Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. Just kind of explosion of water movements. It simulates that kind of movement, and by lightning, there are different other activations, but this is the main installation in a space. There are a few thousand spheres, and they don't move physically, they move by light and create it kind of dynamics, natural dynamics. Another natural dynamics, fluid, movement of fluids was the inspiration for this space we did for Nike as well, like a sporty in the peripheral area of Rio de Janeiro, like requalification of public spaces. And actually there was like the conflict of movement from one side to the other, and actually the fluid, they adapt to those geometries, and we reproduce the same system to create this bench. It's like a grinding space, it's a bicycle rack, and it moves all around the space as a metal structure used in different ways. This is a project we did last year in Mexico, 2 years ago in Mexico, and it's an installation for Natura company, and actually it brings that kind of sensation we do not have when we talk about the Amazon and natural products. We talk about natural products, we want to bring some trees and some plants in the pavilion. But why? If nature can be seen in different dimension, in different situation, in different psychotropic envisioning, you can see different perceptions of what is nature and how we can talk about nature, and we can talk about the Amazon as a futuristic place, as a place of the future, because it is. It's not a folklorical place only. So this exhibition shows the product inside the context of that kind of futuristic envisioning of architecture. Another architecture we did in Milano, 2015. This is a pavilion, Brazilian pavilion for the Expo. And it was pretty ambitious and complex project because, firstly, because you need to talk about food. And talking about food nowadays, it's it's a political issue. So when we talk about food as distributed, not centralized, family production, this is what we want to talk. So how we can talk about it? We talk about network, about meshes, about interconnections. That's why we build this kind of installation inside the Brazilian pavilion, that it's a 1,000 square meter net that interact with the public. Birds, 3D mapping of the movement of the people, as well like the smells from the cultures planted under. So we talk about institutional products in a really immersive, multisensorial installation. And when we talk about Brazil, so how we can talk about Brazil is talk about all sensation, all the feelings. All the feelings we can imply to talk about contents. That's why the pavilion brings that kind of situation we're not so comfortable. When you go to an exhibition and you're like walking straight and everything is nice, you see 2-3 things and then you just get anesthetic. You lose your aesthetic connection with the space. But when you have to see how you walk, you lose your equilibrium, you're interacting, your senses come aware, so you perceive where you are and you perceive the interconnection with the context, with the environment. That this pavilion was trying to bring that kind of uncomfortable sex appeal, actually. It brings that kind of attraction to connect with the environment through all your senses. And we are all kids when we are there. I will move forward and cut your videos. So many things to say. So, what is nature? No, it's like kind of pretty strange question here, but I'm asking to myself, and I think that lots of people are asking, what is nature indeed? So, is nature something real? Or it's like social and cultural construction, this word? Actually, nature comes from birth originally, and in different other languages, Nordic, Latin, as well like German languages, it comes showing something that constantly changes, something that moves, something that was born, that get a birth and live and die and move again. It's about change. It's about that kind of law of nature, the real law of nature. But then in the Middle Ages, nature comes something else. Nature comes something that it's static, something that is under the domain of God. Nature becomes something that actually is secondary under the rule of something, of somebody, and should be used for our purposes. So we can hunt, we can eat, we can kill, we can do whatever we want. And when it comes the private property of the land, come actually, I think, from this moment, so you can do whatever you want on your land. And that's something that disconnects and created the world of nature. Eventually how we use it nowadays. And from the Romantic times, when nature was again seen in the poetry, in beautiful painting, like something that we really need to come back to see, even under the determinist laws of the Illuminate period, again, something that worked as a mechanical world, but they were still searching to connect with nature. So this moment of connecting with nature, but again, it's something distant. I can just see it, I can appreciate it, I'm nostalgic about that. So it's about nostalgia. And nowadays, again, if you ask about nature, something about nature, yes, it's like a mechanical reactions that do not have any intentionality or any will. So, as you can see, and eventually you can see even more, nature is completely a construction, and eventually the word nature is one of the biggest enemy of ecology nowadays, because it's completely manipulated socially, culturally, politically until today. So, wild or domestic, it comes out from that, how we create what was wild, what was domestic. So domestic, wild is this kind of perfect forest that we cannot touch, because we just want to know that there is something perfect, like a heaven. There is something perfect, a nature function, everything is really good there, but that we cannot touch and that we cannot get in. It's wild. And what is domestic? Everything the human domesticated. 80% of animals, of crops, of gardens, and as well the human domesticated and colonized our imagination of nature. So this is what we see. We consider it's beautiful, right? The parks, The parks, we can go back from amazing Oriental parks to the North African parks, to Spanish parks, to English parks, French parks, Italian parks. We always design how nature should look like. You know, it will follow taste, geometries, proportions, everything that comes out from domestication, from this agrologistic operative system we are running 15,000 years already. And that's the aesthetic perception of nature. And when we see what is civilization, then we consider that the higher point of civilization is when we have all this park all for us in the middle. And it's completely controlled, it's completely framed, it works as a park, and there is a strange, uncanny relation between what is a park and what is an architecture, what is a city. So if civilization should be this kind of higher moment of dominance of nature, then we are like on the wrong way, it seems, no? In this historical moment. And how we can think about it, there is no this kind of relation, the park and the city. And if the park were cities, and the cities were park, yeah, there were lots of amazing tentatives in the 20s, in the 30s. We can see Moscow, we can see other cities. There were tentatives as well, Paris, to blend cities with their natural environments. Again, seeing what is nature in this sense. And there are beautiful cases nowadays of acupuncturing in the cities and bringing it up. But then we need to reconsider what is civilization. And then I want to show you some examples. These are AI-generated images I did based on the new anthropological discoveries in the Amazon, in the forest. So when you think about great civilization, Mayas, Aztecas, right? Incas, Babylonia, Syria. You can get the biggest civilization. You will always want to see huge archaeological sites. You can want to see governmental structures, states, religious buildings, because that's how we think civilization are built, on the agrologistic logic of vertical, patriarchal organization. But eventually in the Amazon are being discovered there was a great civilization not being centralized, be distributed in a space when the architecture is the forest. Actually, 30 or 40% of the Amazon eventually was planted in the last 15,000 years. So it's like a forest city. And the little nucleus were organized between each other in high sophisticated structures and interrelations. There was Eduardo Neves, a great archaeologist in Brazil. He's bringing this up now. So our pyramids is the forest. The forest is the great achievement. So civilization can be a great forest. Culture and nature is not a dichotomy coming out from a traditional exclusive vision, but nature and culture comes together. In 2020, Hashim Sarkis, the curator of the Biennale of Venice, they invited us to present our project in the Amazon. And there was a great team, actually. It's something that resonates always in my head. How are we going to live together? Right? Is it good, no? How are we going to live together? And that's something that I'm asking all the time myself as architects, creator, or whatever. So when I design something, is that only for me or it's for us? And what is us? If it's only human, like a great writer from Brazil, indigenous writer, Ayrton Krenak, he said if the word is only for human, it's so boring, it's so small. So what is us? Is there other beings, not only humans? There was a dog yesterday here, but it's only humans. So I don't have a answer. I have lots of questions, but I don't have any answer how we're going to live together. So what we presented, few projects that we are doing, and each project is addressing eventually a different way to give some possible answers. No any answer, I'm sorry, but different strategies, different approaches, and we in a moment we need to experiment. We need to experiment different ways of doing, of being, of co-living. So project from a temple for Ashaninka community, and what I was showing are my drawings in my expedition in the last 20 years in the Amazon of the plants, of indigenous architecture I'm visiting, and on the structures, how we place them. So a project of Mirante do Madada. This is a hotel that's actually started to be built 2 months ago. It's a hotel in the deep forest, close to the lake, and all the architecture, there are like 12 bungalows and one central house. They're all inspired by seeds. I like the word. There are few little words still that are not brought by modernist word, you know. So implantation, how to implant, because something with planting, you know. Imagine you're planting architecture, you're throwing those seeds around. And what is seed? It's a time capsule of life. Seed is something that you plant now and it open in a specific moment. In the right moment, it needs to open and to blossom. So I imagine that the guests from this hotel, through this hospitality, they will open their heart in the right moment. They have to open their heart. So it's a seed. There are no walls. It's a textile. It's a high technological textile. Horizontal and vertical houses. They work as a synergetic structure, as a seed, no gravity, in tension, right, as a system. And they organized around this landscape. So when there is like a little opening, no any tree was cut in that, this little opening, we place the horizontal type. When it's a deep forest, we place the vertical type of a model. This is a collective house, the restaurant, the pool. It's actually for 12 rooms. It's pretty small operation, but it's an immersive operation. This is a floating community. Library. This was from the Goethe Institute and Fritz Claus. We got this competition with our students from the AA, visiting School Amazon, and we are building this kind of little floating library for the communities. This is how we do it on a place with local communities. And this is another floating project that we just did last year. It's for Araquin Alcantara. It's one of the bigger photographer of the Amazon. He's taken pictures last 40 years in the Amazon. So we created this kind of floating structure with 2 LED screen, and it was floating down through the Amazon for 2 months and was showing to the community the pictures this photographer took of them in the last 40 years. So it was going to the smallest community, showing the works, and as well the installation, it was stopping on different places in the Amazon, and as well it was filming. So the camera was taking picture of the people watching the pictures and then streaming them online on a hot site. So on the site you had a map and you could see where the floating exhibition is going, and you could see the pictures. It was like some kind of discovery satellite sent through the river. During the pandemics, I started working on the Rio Negro as well, with the local communities in designing the schools that the community could build by themselves with their own materials, and creating a really simple project, simple schemes inspired by Rio Negro, Alto Rio Negro architecture, indigenous architecture, and as well like Ribeirinho architecture. So they can be easily reproduced and easily built with natural ventilation. Everything that the schools have a problem there, that is too hot, there is no natural light. When they break down, the city hall is difficult to come back in those regions, and they have so much humidity. So what we could learn from ancestral indigenous architecture is how we can implement those really simple bioclimatic strategies in the project. So we did the projects, and we presented the project to the community, and they could build it all by themselves. So it's really simple drawing. All the materials they know how to use, they know how to assemble. They are sustainably taking out those materials from the community locally. Nothing is bought. And as well, they can customize their schools. The kids can customize their schools. They can make the drawings and then paint on the school. So each school is different. Each school is completely locally attuned. They're made by them, they're painted by them, and the manutentioning, that is the biggest issue, maintenance is maintained by the families. The small communities, around 100, 200, 300 people max. We did 10 schools of those, thanks to the Malakias Foundation, the FAM. They are founding that, and private initiatives that are going to the Amazon with cutter expeditions, touristic operation, and then financing those schools. This is another project we are doing with Amazon 4.0. These are biofabrics, small fabrics in the forest that the local community can produce their own products. So there is something, something really strange going on in the last, let's say, 100 years, right? With the commodities and with what we say the other world. So you want to have a great chocolate, you want to have you want to eat everything good, but this come from somewhere. And the impact of everything you purchase, everything you buy, everything you do. So the chocolate, for example, comes from cacao. That's Amazon plant, Brazilian plant. And the cacao, it's a commodity, and it has a huge impact, good and bad impact, how it's used, how it's treated, what actually is left to the communities, what is left to them when this cacao is sold as a commodity, competing with other commodity. So this project, Amazonia 4.0, they created a completely innovative and structured, economical and productive chain where the local community get benefited by producing their own cacao, and what is coming out from this biofabric is not cacao, is a chocolate already. So all the value, added value that the chocolate, the cacao will go, I don't know where, in a Swiss company and sold the chocolate really expensive, they can sell their own chocolate on a fair price, and the cacao is staying there. So cacao, cupuaçu, and other production, the biofabrics operate in that way. They are like really small factories, geodesic structures, small factories. Amazon 4.0 have a great team, great machines. They come to the region, teach the communities how to use it, make the facilities, dismantle, and go away, go to another community. And by doing so, creating like a chain of community that will produce the high-value chocolate and product in a really high-tech way in the middle of the forest. So when I talk about the Amazon, I talk about future, high technology, because nature is the higher technology. And if we embed in the process of working with nature in the Amazon, in all the other regions, we are in the flow of seeing possible futures for our species. Architecture, how it works, in this case, the biomimicry goes to the understanding of the metabolic system of production of cacao. So when you make the nibs, when you need to heat it, when you need to dry it, when you need to store it. So all the architecture, they operate in that kind of a system. And that's the aesthetic output, and the structure output comes out for that. And the community are producing their own product. So the Amazon 4.0, it's a great Brazilian initiative of bringing up and articulating the production, local production of high quality products for the communities. So we are already 20 years going to the forest, and I started this project of teaching in the Amazon, bringing our students. Nowadays, I'm co-director of Architecture Visiting School Amazon. It's from the AEA from London. I'm co-director with Nacho Martin. And we are doing this kind of workshops, by the way. And each time is like creating a new experience, understanding and learning more. And this year we are going again in December. So I'm just sharing here with you the video of last year edition. And whoever is interested, what we are doing, we are creating project solution, architecture project solution, really simple one this year for a facility of accommodations for a community, trying to understand materials, local weaving techniques, local technologies, and how to implement that in a contemporary architecture. Fibers, different weaving techniques. I mean, there is like a 15,000-year-old technology of doing architecture by hands. Okay, ancestrality. That's a word, and so I will just tell it from my personal point of view. Not be abusive with such an important word, but what I'm inspired is about ancestral architecture. And in the last 20 years, I'm visiting the Amazon and learning from local community how to use the bioclimatic architecture applied to our design. So how we can be lightweight, how we can make bioclimatic spaces, how we can create multifunctional spaces. And this comes out from different cultures. Surini was this one. This is the Ashaninka architecture, a really elegant and really intelligent systems that we use in this house. Is the Asha house. Actually, it's a house based, you know, like we live here in our Occidental world, we live in houses, on apartments, we never use the house completely, right? We like spend 8 hours in one space, then we spend 2 hours in another space, then we spend like a kitchen 2 hours, but you never use your house. So if you have like a 100, 200 square meters or whatever, 50 square meters house, apartment, you will never use it all, because you will always, like if you take a clock, you live in time, in different spaces. But indigenous houses are different, because like they use the house all the time 100%, because that house there, it's around 80 square meter space. In the morning, it's for cooking, making a breakfast. In the afternoon, it's for making basket weaving. In the lunchtime, everybody come together. At night, you take out the hammocks, and it's a sleeping room. So a sleeping room, it's always 80 square meter. Your kitchen is always 80 square meter. Your workshop is always... You are leaving the space and the time together once we separated in our culture space and time. And how they do it? They're completely flexible. Under that part of the roof, they have areas that they can store things. So Asha House was inspired by that. On both sides, I have space that you can move your furniture, and your house can easily change during the day, being a workshop, being a place to eat, being a place to receive friends, or whatever. This is the Asha House. Another project inspired, this is Proa. I just want to show this house, because here we use a triangular system. It's a really small house, and the idea is it could not be seen from outside as much. The house can see from inside the surrounding. So it's completely embedded, hidden in the landscape. So the structural system is like a tree underneath, a tree branched system, and then is this kind of inverted bare loading structure on the top. This is Trikona from Trikonasana shape. They are like all made in triangles and interlocked systems. And this is Casa Macaco, the monkey house. The monkey house, I really wanted, these are like hospitality. It's Aldea Rizoma called, those houses. And in this house, I was really like interested to people to experience how the forest is vertical. You know, we have another colonial perception is this kind, it's horizontal. Now the phones moved vertical, you know, but until a few years ago, we were always seeing the landscape as something horizontal, because it comes from the paintings, it comes from ancestors. Old times, we see the landscape is horizontal, because we don't have forests anymore in Europe. That's why we see everything horizontal. But when there were higher forests, actually, you are really lucky you have one of the oldest and most beautiful forests in the world here. But on the other part of Europe, there are not so many forests. So it's logical that we always seeing horizontal, always defending the lands horizontally. But the forest, it's vertical. So when you start to move vertically from the forest, you see how the life organized vertically, how different plants grow on different heights, how different frogs live on different heights. How the ecosystem operates sometimes from 10 meters to 80 meters and never come on the ground, like from generations. It's completely operate. Hundreds and hundreds of living species living vertically on those. So when you start to go up in the forest, in the houses, you can perceive that vertical organization. And the practice space always for meditation. And this house, the structural system is from Jussara. It's a really beautiful tree. It's like, you know, it is acai eventually, this kind of juice and superfood. And the system, the root system, like this tree, it's always like on a really slopes, really strong slopes. It's putting up those kind of small roots to articulate the structures. So this house have lots of pillars, the really tiny pillars, and they can adapt to the changing conditions of the land. That was actually one mount after it was it was ready, and it was completely landed between the trees. And when we talk about landscape design, I believe that landscape design, the only word for me is reforestation. So if you want to make landscape design, plant trees. So this is where the houses are. The first house you saw, Arca, and the other house in the forest. There is this Manacada Serra, beautiful tree that in the winter blossom in Brazil, and that's a river. And that's us. During the pandemic, that's so funny, that's 4 years ago. During the pandemic, we decided to move there, actually, and to live in the forest. And I called the pandemic period like redesigning everything. So we need to redesign everything, and that was for us a great exercise, how to redesign the way we produce food, how to redesign how we teach our kids, how to redesign how we play. And during the 2 years on the pandemic, we actually stood there, and we are still living there. And we start to invite other people, so how we can share experience and still learn. We need to learn so much, and how we can bring ancestral cultures, ancestrality to this place, and how we can bring people that want to have hospitality, but hospitality with the purpose of healing, of connection, of learning, of knowing, of respecting, and that's what it came out. So this is the last ceremony we did was from 3 weeks ago with the Ashaninkas. Ashaninka, it's a great civilization from the Amazon, and they were holding a ceremony, a ritual in our space. We built a temple last year, so we can receive ceremonies of cacao, ayahuasca, and other medicines from the forest, because actually nature is the highest technology. So the forest is pharmacy, is the biggest pharmacy, and indigenous community know how to nourish, how to respect, how to teach us, how to talk with nature in different dimensions. So one of the purpose of the Ayuru space is to create this kind of portal connection with indigenous knowledge, when we can learn different kind of practices, medicines, songs, how to understand the movement of the rivers, how to weave, how to make natural paintings, and it's a cultural place we are holding now, together with those accommodations. Push ali.
Cura, memória, bom, aprender os caminhos bonitos, salvação.
And this is the Ayuru, the temple. So the idea is to have a space where we can connect with different dimensions, different cultures, space from different species. It was all built in bamboo, and it's followed the topology and typology of a traditional ancient houses, not only from the Brazilian Amazon, but as well you can see this typology actually in Japan. You can see this typology in Canada, in northern states, and you can use it in different ways. It was covered with tiles, but they're all varnished, So I wanted to have this kind of skin, almost like a reptile, like a snake, to look more than a spaceship than house. So living systems. So what are living systems? Living, that's another complex thing. I'm not a biologist, right? But I'm completely interested in biology and ecology because I'm interested in systems, understanding system thinking through nature. And in system theory, like systems, living systems, they operate on different scales. They have redundancy systems, they are self-organized, they're working in network, they collaborate. Actually, nature collaborates, nature collaborates all the time. Again, another misunderstanding, like the strongest, the law of the jungle. The law of the jungle is collaboration, right? It's not the strongest will win. It never was that, it was the fittest. But again, the fittest is who collaborate with the other. Collaboration is the law of the jungle. It's not the stronger go further and the less are less. So in the living system, we understand it as a highly collaborative, integrated system. And the forests are these superorganisms. They're like superorganisms because they're organisms made out of organisms of organisms. There's the redundancy between the system. And they're highly resilient. They can live thousands of years, the same forest, living thousands of years. So trees, again, are this another component of the forest. They can pump up 200 liters of water up, right? 200 by day. So this is a higher technology. And I'm saying that because how we can understand cities if we do not understand forests, how they operate. So how we can understand cities and mimic cities being intelligent as a forest. So on a smaller scale, again, we are walking communities. We are made of billions of cells and microbes. So I'm not an individual, I'm a dividual, I'm divisional. I'm not the same today and in 10 days further because my cells completely change. The biomes, like the gut feeling, like listening yourself is listening your community. You are a community, like a walking community. And when you go deeper in some psychotropic moments with connection with the forest, you can feel that those respect as well some geometries. So it's about geometry, it's about interrelation, it's about collaboration in the system. So now, again, in our interesting moment of changing conditions of our planet, how we gonna move from a perception of a centralized, decentralized, distributed, and eventually I like to call it the ecosystemic era. How we can perceive that we are part of something higher, integrated, interrelated between all living species. So this kind of dichotomy, this dualism between city and forest, it's a completely an imagination, it's an invention. The city operates as well, it was built with the same principle as any other natural element. We build the city. So why we do not express that kind of natural intelligence to have resilient cities, to have self-repairing cities, to have adaptive cities? How we can consider a city as being a forest. So I have some simple images that forest as a city. This is Sao Paulo, I hope in 2030. Now we need to hope, right? Yeah, we need to dream. We need to dream because if we do not dream, we cannot envision. Because the dreams you are seeing, you are listening, you are watching on your movies, the future, it's like a kind of not nice. It looks like all catastrophic all the time. It's creating our imagination, and it's paralyzing our way of prototyping possible futures. We need to imagine possible futures, because if we cannot imagine futures, we are not able to design them. So, imagining future, this is AI. I like to use AI because we are teaching to AI what to see. You know, if we teach AI just to make money, or we teach AI just to be efficient, but why we don't teach AI to love nature, to love our cities as nature? So when we're prompting about cities nature, we're prompting that. So resilience, how our city can be resilient. Interconnection, how our city can interconnect. No cars, we just walk, we pass through rivers, bike, other kind of transports. Community, how we can create community, smaller community, interconnected between each other, creating constructive output. Synergy between all species. Adaptability, how we can adapt to changing conditions. More flooding, more rains, more dry season. That's the reality. So how our city can be adaptive to those changes. We cannot fight. There is like a bad word like war. War against COVID doesn't work. You're using the same Bellic strategy. War against climate change. Why war? Why not love? No? Why we don't use other words that are more constructive and more adaptable than from the Bellic perception? Biomimic. How we can use biomimetic systems and solution, and how we can consider that we are like as a species, we build as a collective metabolism. The other species that do that, hives, bees, they do like termites, they like build collective architectures. We don't do nests, actually, kind of, but we do collective. So it's called collective metabolism or phenotype in biology, how we build architectures as expression of our dynamic. And multispecity, this is actually a concept I developed, and it's a neologism, and I like it, and I'm evolving on this direction. So how we design cities for other species. Because city for human, besides being very boring, is not a good strategy. We need other species to help us to have resilient cities. We need fishes to clean the water. We need birds. We need birds to plant. We need trees to take down the temperature of our streets. We need streets where our dogs do not burn their feet. Do you know that dogs burn their feet when they walk on the street? Is that like a nice city, intelligent city? So how we can bring other kind of animals inside the cities so we can have a multispecity, because then slowly our city will work as a forest, will operate as a forest. And I think that's the way out. And finally, what we saw from the beginning, when Bernard Diaz de Castillo saw Tenochtitlan. So it was a dream, yes, but if we dream together, it's a reality. Thank you.
Is this on? Yeah, cool. Thank you, Marko. Beautiful, beautiful talk. I mean, there's so much here that I think is great to see you using AI as well, like to visualize some of this mid-journey, right? I love seeing that in action. So we're going to have about 10 minutes. I have a few questions I'd love to ask, and then we can open this up to the audience. So, Marko, you said that the purpose of your work is to create portals, spaces of interconnection between humans and their own nature and ecological context. And so much has happened in the last 5 years with the pandemic and lots of natural disasters going on, war, like lots of different things happening and changing, right? I'm curious, for you, how has that definition of interconnection evolved for you in the last 5 years? I think especially as you've moved to the forest, I'm curious if that has impacted the way that you approach your day-to-day work or praxis in any way.
Okay, so it's a challenge, but it was like on your bag was written like the way you talk, the walk, you talk, between walking and talking.
Walk the talk,
yeah.
We were walking and talking
yeah,
at the
walking
same
and
time.
talking. Yes, it was about that,
Literally.
right? Okay, now I get it. I was like wondering what it means. Do you walk the talk, no? And I believe we need to test different way of living. It's time to experiment, because we need to test so many models, different models, in order to give a chance to one of those to rise. We need to prototype different worlds. So this world, it's obsolete in so many things, so the new world have to come. So how we can prototype, and you can prototype it in our everyday life. How we live, what we eat, for who we work, from who we are getting paid, with who we work, how we produce our things, where the things come. So where the wood come from, or the architecture we do. Do I just buy the wood, or I want to know where the wood come from? I want to see the forest when it will be cutted and it will be planted again. Am I sure that all this is like legal? Is not. Just for you to know, 95% of the woods coming from the Amazon is illegal. 95. Wow. So once you want to buy something, beautiful things in wood, think twice. Or think where this wood come from. As well like wood from the east, from the Eastern Europe, as well amazing forest is wood. So it's really important to know where the wood come from. So if is serious the place, how they are planting back. So we have responsibility for all the actions we do. And surely we are not coherent in all our things, but how we can be more aware that the world is like a cyclical, dynamical organisms, and things come and things go, but we need to know more about the system and how the world operates. So the manual for the spaceship Earth.
Yeah, I mean, what I love about that is it's everyday choices. It's like the small everyday choices that we think about, that maybe we don't think about, that we should be thinking more about, right? So for those of us that live like incredibly busy lives, or maybe live in a city, and maybe we don't have access to nature as often as we'd like, or we work remotely and are mostly on screens or living online most of the time, what is one step that we can take to reconnect ourselves to nature? And maybe if we can't go out easily, is there another way we can do so?
Yeah. So my office is in a city, 20 million people city. You know, it's like a huge city, and the traffic jam is kind of way worse there than here. I'm so delighted to walk around. We can either walk there, because in lots of regions it's kind of dangerous. So there is like this myth, again, when we think about nature, that I need to go out to go to nature. You know, I will work really hard this week, and then in a weekend I will go to nature. But actually you are nature. We are nature.
You are nature.
You are nature. So it's not about going out physically necessarily. You can just stay to your place, you can close your eyes, you can meditate. You are nature. You can talk with other living beings. You can make some other friends that are not humans eventually. It's cool. So there is everything around us. It's just that this kind of system that we are proportioning our production bring you to that kind of dichotomy that I need to go out to go to nature. That's why the biophilia is kind of tendency, pretty cool, because it's asking people to bring references that connect them with nature in their everyday life. So let's bring some more plant at home, let's bring some furniture that is made from mushrooms. So you have other components and other living things that connect you, and that's a natural tendency. And I think that's really growing between humans a lot. So much people are connecting with nature because it's with their own nature, being nature, because it's a survival mode now. So that is that moment. So that's beautiful. I'm really, really like confident in that, and I'm really like hopeful for us humans in aligning with nature.
Yeah. We're not separate from it because we are nature.
We are nature. Yeah,
we often think of it as a separation, right?
Yeah.
And that creates more loneliness. All right, so I'd love to open up to the audience. Who has a question for Marko? All right, yeah.
So you were mentioning that you harvested local techniques to create different alternatives to the materials we usually employ. I wonder if there is a material that surprised you or a technique that you've seen that you wish that the people would know about it. I've seen, for example, you were having a kind of moss in your hand. I guess that's used for isolation. It's a wild guess. Thank you.
So, good question. You can find so many materials when you dig deeper in ancestral architecture, local architecture. You have it in this region, absolutely, as in any other region. Humans are here tens of thousands of years. So knowledge about architecture, particularly wood architecture in Romania and stone architecture in the south, it's something that can be so much learned about, as in the indigenous, in the Amazon, or in any other region where humans are for a long time using natural materials. Now, in our century, we need to use those materials in a different way. And as well, we can process them, we can evolve them, and create new high-tech materials from natural materials, right? So that material that I had in my head was really funny, because we were walking about the lake, and actually was a lake that was dried out, and was algae. Yeah, there was algae, and I always go with the biologist. I have a friend, and she always, I like to go with biologists, asking everything, you know, I'm this kind of, what is this, what it is, and she said, this is an algae, and it was so amazing, was so like strong, and I believe, yeah, that could be used like thermoacoustic isolation in our project. And like this, we can find so many stuffs around that we are not used to, and imagine, I think innovation comes in that. Natural materials becoming supernatural materials.
Any other questions? Yeah, up here.
Hey, hello. Thank you for your talk. And I have two questions. One of them is in the clip, and you talked about teaching the community or using actually the knowledge of the community to sue and build and things like that. And I find that beautiful because it also can yield very different results and unique results. But I can hear in my head the voice of the high streamlined, productive, I don't know, factory owners saying, well, if we can't unify it and streamline it, it ain't gonna work. And my first question is, what would you answer to them? And the other question is, I saw those, especially that vertical house, and all those houses so blend into nature, and it's lovely. But at the same time, I'm thinking, I mean, that is lovely. I want that. I yearn for that. But at the same time, I know that in my house, when I found ants or bugs, I don't like it. So, what do you have to say about that, also?
I love that question.
That's really nice. Yes, you will have bugs. You will have bugs and you will have other animals. And on the beginning, you will not like them. Me neither. But then you will start to understand them. You will see, you will understand what animals are. Because we don't like and we are afraid because of our ignorance of things, usually. Humans are like that, you know. Everything they see, they're like, first scared. Then you like watching it, you see just like a really funny bug, no problem with it. But then you start to learn about spiders, about other things that are not welcome. But there are different strategies to not share some spaces with them. When you think about living together with other species, doesn't mean you will sleep with a spider. That's not the idea. That there is space for everything and everybody. But it's creating this kind of opportunity of co-living and maintaining a certain distance. And you know what is really crazy? That sometimes I feel lots of those animals, after a few years, they understand the limits. That they don't cross some limits. You know, we had a few snakes on the door, really dangerous one with our kids in the first years, and was really, really bad because you don't want that during the pandemic to have a snake bite, right? So we tried different things, and then at a certain point they just didn't get in anymore. They just stood far away. There is an intelligence and understanding after a while when you practice this kind of relation. First you're scared. Then you learn, then you start to communicate in a different ways. And then, I don't know, I think we need to give a chance. We need to give a chance to relation with other species. And your other question is about scaling. And scaling, it's, I pointed out one book that's called Mushrooms at the end of Making the World on the Ruin of Capitalism. And it's about scaling. Actually, you know, the first concept of scaling was the production of the sugar cane in Brazil with the slaves. Because you can scale it forever. Slaves work for free, you bring them, you put them on a plantation, and you can scale it. That's the concept of scaling. The concept of scaling comes out from slavery. So you cannot scale things on a finite planet, right? So you can scale them until a certain point, but can not be like idea of let's scale that kind of hand weaving. Are we sure that you want to scale that? Or eventually want to make small production, local production, they can collaborate with each other and they can produce a certain amount of things and share that certain amount of things. So when I think about producing on a high demand for a community, we need always to be careful to not want to introduce them in a system where the value of production, the time of production, the capacity will come to industrial perception as industrial production. So I think there is a really important gap there to value local production without trying to bring it as infinity and as a scaling things, you know. So that some things cannot be scaled, don't need to be scaled.
Amazing. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time, but you can chat with Marko tonight at the festival. Thank you so much, Marko.
Thanks so
Beautiful
much.
Work.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.